then when I went to step up on the rock wall, something pushed me right here in my chest, the middle of my chest.
And this UFO popped into existence, and we both reacted at the same time. I look around and they're gone, and I thought to myself, did the UFO take my friend? I gotta make a break for it. Welcome to the 108 Effect. This podcast was created as a space to pause, to breathe, and to explore the questions that we don't always have time or permission to ask. Across cultures and traditions, the number 108 represents completion, connection, and alignment. It reminds us that there is a rhythm to life, something both practical and mysterious, that links who we are with something greater. Here, we gather to talk openly about consciousness, intuition, life, death, and the moments that quietly change us. Through honest conversation and shared experience, we explore what it means to trust ourselves, to listen inward, and to live with greater awareness. If you've ever felt a pull towards something deeper or wondered if there's more to this human experience than what we see on the surface, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath, settle in, and join us as we begin this journey together. This is the 108 Effect.
I'd like to welcome you back to the 108 Effect on behalf of myself, Laura, and Tina. And we have our fourth co-host with us tonight. And I'd like to welcome you to meet Julie.
Hi.
Now, Julie is part of the group that we talked about in the very first episode that we all joined together to discuss our weird little lives when it comes to psi abilities, the paranormal. You get that. With Julie, I only met Julie once or twice prior to this particular first visit where we got together and decided we need a group. So I'm going to ask you some questions, Julie, to kind of get you a little bit more comfortable with being in front of the camera here. For the listeners, I'm just reminding you, once a month we get together, we talk, we share weirdness, we rejoice in all the validation we get left and right. So, Julie,
Yes.
Most of us in this screen room, we have all talked about our childhood and where and if the paranormal was active. Was it something that was, part of your life? Was it something you grew up with? Speak a little bit to that.
No, it wasn't until I was older that I got into the paranormal. I didn't experience any of that stuff when I was younger.
So when did you when did this want you to raise your awareness? When did the paranormal come into your lives, for lack of a better way to say it?
It would have been after Dawn and Tina met. So then my aunt, to introduce them together at an event, the following year, I went to that event in Colorado with my daughter and my aunt. That was pretty cool.
And that wouldn't be the Stanley Hotel, would it?
Yes, it would be the Stanley Hotel. Never been there. I mean, I grew up in Colorado, but never been there. But it was really very interesting. And my daughter, she brought a friend with, and we all experienced some crazy stuff, and it kind of blossomed from there.
What was the kind of stuff you experienced? And was it the first time you experienced anything paranormal?
Yeah, I think so. That was like the first time really that I did, I believe. One night we were doing our own investigation, and we went outside, and outside there was that other building that had it used to have the animals in there at one time. So we went walking over there, and then we had to step up onto it was a rock wall, and we stepped onto the rock wall to get onto the grass. And then when I went to step up on the grass, up on the rock wall, I felt pushed. I felt something pushed me right here in my chest, the middle of my chest. And then I kind of went back down the wall, and I thought, well, that's weird. But then I went and kept going, and I went back up. It was just a step up on the rock wall and went. And then we were standing there, and then we were kind of like looking at the building. It was dark too, so you really couldn't see. And then we moved over a couple of feet, and then somebody said, watch out, there's a bunch of elk over there. Within 10 feet of us, there was elk there. So I felt like somebody was like stopping us from going over there because all that elk were there, laying there. And if you startled them, you could get hurt. Maybe. I don't know. That's what I had in my head.
How did that make you feel, like, when you first experienced that? Like, were you
That was really
exhilarated?
weird.
Were you scared?
Both. Not so much scared, but more like, wow, that's kind of cool. There was another incident. We were in where the building where they had the plays. And then downstairs, we were investigating downstairs. And it's where they used to have an elevator that used to go up onto the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Down below it, it's a bathroom now. It's a women's bathroom. So I was in there and I was standing in the stall that the elevator was in. And then I kind of shut the door, but it wasn't shut all the way. And then I was talking and stuff. And I said, if you don't want me here, let me know. Well, the door opened up all the way.
Love that.
So I thought, oh, okay. And then I walked out and then it shut. It didn't shut all the way. It didn't slam or anything. It just, was open a couple inches, but it opened and shut for me. And then I was like, okay, I guess I'll leave. And then I walked out of the bathroom.
So they were just politely
Yeah. Yes.
asking you to leave.
Yeah.
Yes.
You asked,
I was like,
yeah.
okay.
Yep.
Well, I
Yes.
think it's amazing, when there are people out there that are ghost hunting for pleasure, for fun, whatever,
Mhm.
and they don't see or hear anything. And you go to one of the most famous places in the US for haunted activity, and you're getting activity left and right. So what happens after that?
Yes.
So that had to have piqued your interest.
Oh, it totally did. And then plus my aunt, she's been interested in this stuff for a long time. So she was already piquing my interest in it. So because of that, then I was more interested in that. And then she would go to other events and then I would go with her to learn more about anything and everything in that. There was a show, Paracon, that was up in Michigan that she would go to every year. It was the end of August. And I started going to that every year, just meeting the people there, learning the different things, meeting the people from the different shows that they had, and just learning all different kinds of things.
That was a great Paracon, great location, and
It was very good.
tons of lectures. I mean, it had everything. I'm sad they aren't doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think to preface this whole conversation so people understand, Dawn and myself went to the Stanley Hotel. It was the year before you did, right, Julie?
Right.
And that's where we met Julie's aunt.
Mm-hmm.
Show. Yes.
She was standing by herself, and we didn't want her to be by herself, so we went out, introduced ourselves, and then we became friends, and that's kind of how this all evolved. And I think for us, we met you, Julie, first went to the Minnesota Paracon. That was a fun weekend.
Yeah.
It was fun, but I brought my mom up there so that she could visit her sister, my aunt. And then so I just hung out with her, but I didn't do any of the Paracon stuff. But it did pique my interest. I kind of regretted not doing it, but I needed to be with her.
So was it these conferences? Was it the people you were meeting there? Were they the experiences? What got you to wanting to be part of our little group where we could talk about this, that, and the other, and why it's happening to us?
After meeting, Don and Tina and Cheryl and stuff, and learning all the different experiences that they've had and stuff, then I met you, and everybody had experiences, and I just wanted to learn more. One time we were going to investigate a ship in Tina's neck of the woods. And so we were at her house, and then we were all looking at our crystals and stuff, and then Don had said, hey, Julie, this one feels really good. Can you feel it? I'm like, no. And that's really why
Your
I
reactions are the
can't.
best. Your reactions, Julie, are the best. Sorry.
Well,
So authentic.
so yeah, so that was one of the things that I wanted to learn was I wanted to feel the crystals. I wanted to feel them vibrate. I wanted to feel them in my hands and, because I feel like I'm missing out on something. I mean, I know a lot about crystals now. I mean, I have a lot now. I mean, I went into it head first but I still want to be able to feel them.
I'm looking at all of us, and we all have big smiles on our faces, and the reason that we do is because we have all watched Julie just really grow. And one of the things about, like, if you have a ghost hunting team, the best thing to have on your ghost hunting team is a skeptic. And if you have a little group like this, the best thing to have are variations in skill levels. Julie came in thinking she had no skill levels. So, Julie, talk to us a little bit about all the things that you have experienced in the last 4 years, I guess it's been.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Well, we joined the mentor group, and I just thought, I'm just going to be way behind everybody, which I kind of feel like I am still, but I'm learning. But I thought I was really going to be way behind. And then we were learning different things about mediumship and stuff like that. And, like taking a picture and what do you get from the picture? What do you feel about the person? Or, are they alive or dead? Or what's wrong with them? Do they have ailments or what, And it's just like, writing things down on that. And then actually having things that I write down about a person actually being right, and stuff. And it's like, wow, that's mind blowing to me.
I think out of the four of us, Julie is the most interesting in the fact that she didn't have any of these experiences and came in, early having that curiosity of trying to figure out exactly what was happening to her. It was more like a curiosity to see what she was capable of. And it's she's just as capable as the rest of us, as we've grown all to know, which that's just what I think is so great about having Julie be part of everything with us, because she is learning in leaps and bounds, and we're watching her grow from somebody who didn't think she had any abilities to somebody who clearly does, and continue them and grow within them. It's been fascinating. I've loved to watch it.
It's a great example of our group and any of our listeners that are watching who thinks that, oh my gosh, I can't do anything. I mean, you're a huge testament. You can give big testimony on, the growth you've had. And honestly, all of us have had to get out of our own way in order to believe in ourselves and trust what we're getting,
And that's a big part of it, is believing in yourself.
There's a wow story with Julie that we're all the rest of us we know exactly what story this is. Just a reminder to some listeners, we practiced all kinds of things. We were exploring what we were capable of, and all four of us have grown in our abilities from the get-go. Like, I am doing things I cannot believe that I haven't had these abilities in years. Same thing with Tina, same thing with Dawn. And watching Julie follow along, she just said she feels like she's behind, but she's just behind in the learning process. She is where we were a while back. She's, to think that she's behind us is not giving herself enough credit. But there was this wow moment. We were doing remote healing. And remote healing is where you focus on and try to visualize a person, scan their bodies, and then identify areas of concern, that kind of thing. And to make sure that the other person didn't know who it was, we all had to bring a sheet of paper that just had their name, their age, and their location. That is it. And it had to be somebody we didn't know, and proven not to know. And these names were not given to us until the day of the first practice. I believe this was the first one. It happened to be somebody I brought, and it was my nephew. He has a different name than me, all kinds, there's no way that anybody would have known. And the way it goes is you concentrate, you meditate, you kind of find your center, and then you just instinctively start writing some things down, or as you're scanning, writing some things down. And then at the end, we would take turns reading what we wrote, and then I would be, in this case, be able to tell them if they're right or wrong. Tina would always make a list way longer than she'd admit to. We'd find out the things she left out were actually more on point.
Secret list.
Yeah, her secret list. Dawn had a really good, she was always anywhere between, 80% and 99% right. And I was like in 80 to 90%. So we were doing good every time we did it. But this particular time, again, Dawn had her list. She was pretty high up there. Tina had a longer list than she claimed. And then Julie had 3 things. And they were okay. They were general. I don't remember them specifically, but I think it's because they were just diminished by what happened next. They were all right. She had one right, where they're all right about one particular thing. She says, I don't know why, but I keep getting a visual of a skateboard. Of course, the other 2 didn't know, and I almost fainted because a lot of his injuries in his body that had been discussed were caused by a horrific skateboarding accident where he shattered one of his ankles. And that still is a problem for him today. And I was just blown away. And so when I told everybody about this, they're like, oh my God. So what's funny is these big lists that the rest of us come up with are usually, like I said, anywhere between, actually, I'd say 85 to 100%. Julie will write 3 things, and all three things will be completely right. So it's just, that moment. So every once in a while, if we're talking about an oh wow moment, it's always skateboard, and we look to Julie.
Skateboard moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Julie, you live on some property up in Minnesota.
Yes.
And
Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Yes.
Sorry, Julie.
We love Julie.
I love it.
So you live on this property. There have been a couple of incidents, and I'd like to hear Tina and Dawn talk about one in particular. But your property has, I think, some magic to it. If you want to,
Yes.
Julie, talk about that a little bit and maybe kind of lead us into the story that involves Tina and Dawn as well.
Yes. My husband grew up on a farm, a dairy farm, and that's been in the family since 1863. So my son, our oldest son, lives on the farmhouse now with his kids. So that's 7 generations that have lived here. So all the rest of them have been here. So there's a lot of history in this area. So we built a house in the pasture. So we're surrounded by trees and stuff like that. And it does feel kind of magical. And one time I was looking out the bathroom window and I saw a red thing out by the fence. It looked like it could be a flower, but it wasn't a flower because there's no flowers by there. And I think I told you guys, or Dawn and Tina, I'm not sure how I told anyway. Then I looked away and then it was gone because it looked like a red rose shaped, but then it was gone. And then I went out there and there was nothing there that could have been red, and it wasn't sunlight or anything there.
Did you think it was an orb?
And no, it was not an orb. It really looked like a real flower, but I knew it wasn't a flower because there's only green there on the other side of the fence. So I don't know what it could have been, because then I went over there to investigate it, and it was like there was nothing there. So I know, well, I've done some pendulum work and stuff, and I have asked questions, and there's like fairy stuff out there, maybe. So it's just you don't know what you're gonna see out there or what you're gonna feel out there. It's just a little different.
So what did you see and hear on the night that Dawn and what's that other girl's name?
Tina.
Yeah.
That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, tell us
That
about
was.
it.
Oh my gosh. So everybody came into town to Minnesota because we were going to investigate up by Duluth. Something. Well, that fell through. So we did something else. And then Don and Tina stayed at my house before they took off to go back to their own houses. And then the last night, we were sitting out on our back porch, just talking and stuff. And Tina had a dream the night before or a couple nights before about 1:35.
So that was the night that I got there, and it wasn't a dream. I heard it. I heard somebody say it to me, and I think it was 1:31. And I was like looking around because it was a male voice, and I couldn't figure out what it was because I was kind of trying to go to sleep, but I wasn't asleep yet. So I texted all you guys to see if anybody else had heard it because it was very, very clear. I didn't know what it meant. And then we went off to Duluth for a few days.
Yeah. So we're sitting out on the back porch, and my husband's out there too. But then it was a work night, so he got tired. It was getting late, and he was getting tired, so he went to bed. But we were still out there, and it was getting to be like 1:30, and we're just sitting there chit-chatting, and I'm facing Don and Tina, and I'm facing the house. They're looking out into the sky and just out into the yard. And we're just talking, and all of a sudden their eyeballs just get really big, and I'm just like, it just went crazy from there because they're like, oh shit, did you see that? Yeah, that just popped, that light just popped out of nowhere. And then we got up, and then we went over there and looked, and I don't know, maybe I'll let you guys finish talking about it, but all hell broke loose
The funny
after that.
The funny thing is that Tina was going to go to bed, and then
Yeah.
we heard that noise, and she says, "Hell no, I'm not going to bed. I know something's going to happen because Dawn says anytime there's that noise, there'll be a UFO."
The barred owl.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that sounded like no owl that I had ever heard, though. That was like crazy.
And that was the first time I had ever heard that owl on our property was that night.
It was a barred owl, though. It just
It's
sounded
a barred owl.
so weird. I'm like,
Yep.
what the hell is that? And then she's
And I
like,
hear them
yeah.
all the time now. Yeah.
okay, I'm going to stay up a little bit longer.
Mhm.
Well, I'm an early bird. I go to bed at like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I don't like to stay up
Mhm.
late. So that's about, I think we were like 10:30. I was getting to my limit,
No,
and
I think it was later than that.
It was later
maybe
than that.
It might have
was
been later
almost.
what
It was
for
close
the
to 1
owl?
o'clock in the morning.
No,
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Oh.
the owl.
Oh
Wasn't
no,
it?
that really,
Yeah.
No,
the
that was
owl was
earlier
really-
at night.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember when we heard it, and I thought to myself, was that I looked at you right away. I was like, is that an owl? Because I don't know what one sounds like. We have them here. And your eyes were real big. I remember that. And I thought, oh, hell, I'm not going to bed. I'm waiting because I'm not going to miss it, But we waited for a while. And
Mhm.
what Julie described is correct. Dawn and I were looking out at the clearing, and I can see it in my mind's eye as I tell the story. There was this clearing in her yard in between two trees, so we could see very clearly the night sky. And we just happened to both be looking at the same exact spot. And this UFO popped into existence, literally out of nowhere. And we both reacted at the same time.
Mm-hmm. It's
So go ahead, Dawn. You want to go ahead tell that
The only
story?
way I can describe like how it looked is if God had a giant mag light and it just went boom, right on, right now, and we're like, whoa, and like, which is funny because that brings. Never mind. It's a connected story. I'll tell you later. But But anyway, we watched this UFO move forward, go sideways, and then slowly come towards us and
It went up around the star.
Yeah. And ended up right over the house. So
see, our house is on a hill, but we're surrounded by old trees that are really tall. They're over 100 feet. And it just came in slowly, but there was no sound or barely a hum. And our house is situated in the flight path to the airport, Minneapolis airport. But those planes are so much higher, and this was so much lower. Yeah. And it was like treetop level that was coming in.
And the light was huge. Like, it wasn't like a small, tiny little, like how you've seen some videos of some UFOs on, TV, how they're tiny. This was huge. Like, would you describe it? Like, I think the moon was really big that night. It wasn't quite as big as the moon, but it was like that big. There was no, I can't even.
We described it as the Star of David.
We did.
Literally. We did. That's what we said.
It was so bright.
It was so bright. And then it started to, at first, it almost didn't, I wasn't sure if it was moving. I wasn't sure what was going on because I saw it pop into existence. So I knew it wasn't, but we watched it for quite a while before it started to move. It moved up and over because I was referencing where it was in the sky versus a star that had been there all night. So it moved up and around the star, and then it started to come right towards us, and you started to video record it. It didn't go very well. Let me just tell you that because we moved it around.
It's like this. It's like, see it?
Well, and plus, because we were looking at it, and I was like, my God, if you show this to anybody, don't play the audio. Don't play the audio.
No.
We're like, no, I told you, whenever I hear that sound, I see a UFO. We're like, we were like lunatics.
Well,
it was very exciting. Very exciting.
It was very. But then, not only that, we messed up the video. Hands down. Nobody can see the video because you really won't be able to make anything out. But even with that, we still thought it was recording when it came over the house. That was my next point.
Yeah.
We did not know that Dawn's phone had completely shut down. And what happened was, the way Julie's house is situated is there is, her porch has, it's completely surrounded with a netting, and then she has the roof with a ceiling fan, which I highly appreciate it in the summer in Minnesota. Anyway, so when this thing started to come at us, it was like, I likened it to the fact that it knew that we were there. It was conscious of us because it popped into existence. It knew we were waiting for it, and it came right at us. There is no other way to explain that behavior from what people would say is, a UFO sighting. And then when it got over to the house, it was my first time ever experiencing a UFO in this manner ever, really. And so I kind of got down on my knees and looked up out of the netting to see it right above the house. Dawn and Julie ran out of the porch and into the yard, and it took us all a few minutes. It was very chaotic.
Yeah.
Because when it got there, we were also panicked, and I was down on my knees looking up at this thing, and then I look around and they're gone, and I thought to myself, did the UFO take my friend? I got to make a break for it. I started to run towards you guys to see if you had been taken. I was thinking, how am I going to explain to Randy that, they're gone? I don't get to explain to people, they're gone.
These lunatics ran towards it. What are they talking about?
No.
Why would you do that? But luckily, they weren't taken. But you guys tell your story, because I only saw it from my perspective, which was, from inside of the porch, looking up through the mesh.
Well, that was pretty good. But I can say, verify that it felt so different, the consciousness of it, that I literally texted you all and said, if I go missing in the middle of the night, it's because of this, and I never get like that. That's not me, but my spidey senses were just going off like crazy.
Dawn had, when she was laying in bed later on, she thought it came back and it was hovering over the house again.
Yeah.
So she really thought she was going to
That's
leave.
why I sent the text. I was like, if the men in black, if they're coming, they're going to take me, one or the other. If I'm gone, this is why. This is my evidence right here.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, just so that everybody's aware, it did show up when we did look back at the audio recording, the video. It did show up at 1:31.
Yeah.
So it was like a premonition to whatever reason I was told that time is when that popped into existence in the sky, which is crazy.
Yeah. And I do want to say that it was a black triangle with lights on the bottom that just went over the house and the trees, and very low hum.
Well, so let me ask you this. When you girls were at Julie's, and I'm speaking specifically to Tina and Dawn, what is the vibe of the area outside of what had happened that night? Even before then, did you feel an energy there?
Her house is just magical. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. You go, it's in the country. It's got that warm country feel, but there's an extra energy there.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe, and people who have felt it will know what I'm talking about. It's just an extra, like when you get excited, that feeling that goes through your body. It's kind of that energy, but just a little bit lower until it begins to rise, and then you experience these different things with these different elementals or UFOs. Or other things.
Speaking of, I'm going to get Tina to talk about the vibe she got there, and then I have a question.
Oh, I thought it was interesting because when I first got there that night, I think I got there first, and I was able to pick the room first.
Yes,
I think so. And I was in that room, and I could feel there was definitely a vibe there, and it was palpable. You could feel it.
Dawn brought up elementals. Right. So if you don't know what an elemental is, it's usually an interdimensional being. And there's all kinds of these more famous, the chupacabra, Bigfoot, the Pukwudgie or whatever, Pukwudgie. And
Pukwudgie.
There's all kinds of these things. The Yeti, some people, will even put certain demons in that. You've got brownies and fairies and all these kind of things. But so Julie she's obsessed in a very good way about one such cryptid. And I sometimes refer to him as her boyfriend, her boyfriend in the woods. And so she brings an element to our little group that goes outside. Actually, Tina, and we'll talk about this because we're going to have a whole episode about cryptids. Tina and Dawn have both seen fairies. You've got Julie, who I'm going to tell her story in a minute. But to bring something in, I'm enamored by it because I'll be the first one to tell you I believe in this particular one, and it's because I believe anything's possible. So, Julie, tell us about your boyfriend in the woods.
That sounds so bad. Well, a couple years ago, my youngest son is in the Air Force, so he was over in Europe. So we went to Europe to go visit him. And then when we got back, it was the week we got back, my husband was out mowing because we'd been gone for a while and he had to mow. We have 6.5 acres, and his sister shares a driveway with us. So he was mowing her part of the driveway that goes to her property. Well, there's this one, and it's kind of it's not a long stretch of driveway, but it's covered by trees. And so he was mowing, and one tree was, it was tipped over, and then about 9 feet up, it was, the tree was like that big around, but it was twisted. and hanging, and he came up to the house and he's just like, Julie, you got to go see this. He goes, we have a Bigfoot tree. And I'm like, what? And he goes, no, serious. You got to come and see this. He goes, there's a Bigfoot tree. It's broken. You have to see this. So we go down. He gives me a ride on the 4-wheeler down to it. And then I was just thinking, what is he talking about? I thought he was just teasing me. But we get down there and there's this tree that is tipped over and half of it, the top part of the tree is hanging down about 9 feet up. It's totally twisted around, just like they show it on TV when it twists around and it's broken. There's nothing else on the tree that is broken or anything to lead that part of the tree had got caught in anything and got twisted, or the other branches and leaves were not damaged. It was just weird. There was no other trees in this line of trees that was damaged. They were all standing like they should be. There were no branches broken. It was just this one tree that was twisted at 9.5 feet up. It just happened to be a really, really hot, humid day, and the mosquitoes were really bad. And I tried to look for footprints and stuff like that, and I couldn't do it. And so I just left. But it just kind of like really freaked me out because it was like, well, holy crap, is there really a Bigfoot around here? And I was just like, holy crap. So anyway,
say it. Go ahead, say
took
the
pictures. Sasquatch, that one? Oh, that other word.
Yeah. Holy Sasquatch.
Holy Sasquatch. Yeah. There's your next t-shirt.
That's my S word.
Okay.
But we took pictures of that. And then when we went this was when the Michigan Paracon was still going on. And they had a couple people from Expedition Bigfoot that was there. And so I was doing something with the girls, and then Randy had went up to the vendor area, and he was actually talking to the guy, and then he was talking to him about the tree and that, and he says that, well, my wife has pictures and stuff, and then he came down and found me. He goes, Julie, you got to go show him the pictures. He wants to see the pictures. So I go up there and I show him the pictures, and he just about died. He goes, I really want to go there.
So what other incidents happen that make you think that there is a Sasquatch on the property?
Another time when we got back from the Michigan Paracon, I heard we were sitting out on the back porch, and it was, early evening, maybe the light was still out, probably 8 o'clock or something. We heard rock clacking. Now, it wasn't the trees, it was like rocks hitting each other. Now, we live in the country. We're surrounded by other farmland. Eric and his boys live next door, but his boys are little. They're too little to leave the house. His sister lives there, but just on the property too. But she has 2 girls that are probably too scared to go in the woods. But there's nobody else around and it happened just on the other side of our fence. There was rock clacking, like 2 rocks hitting together. Don't know who it could be because neighbors don't go on the neighbor's property unless they ask permission or they let you know that they're doing that because they just don't. They don't want you going on theirs. They won't come on yours. And then one time, just for kicks, I was sitting on the porch and I was playing the some Ron Johnson's. I was playing some sounds that he had taped from a long time ago, years ago. They're very well known. And I was playing them out there. And it was like the next night I heard a whoop, just whoop kind of thing, It's just really weird.
So these you mentioned Ron Johnson. these sounds are sounds to attract a Sasquatch?
They are sounds that Sasquatch have made. The Sierra sounds. It's called the Sierra sounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're actually, you can look on them on YouTube. But they are sounds that they have recorded them doing when they were out in the woods.
And through research, learning about the Bigfoot or the Sasquatch, they clack rocks together.
Oh,
they bang sticks against trees. So what she's experiencing is everything that we've learned that Bigfoot do, so to speak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is an appropriate time for Dawn to do the Bigfoot call.
Oh, no.
Oh, can we vote?
Right.
Raise your hand if you want to see or hear Dawn do the Bigfoot call.
Yes.
Go ahead, Donnie.
Outnumbered.
Okay,
Outnumbered.
I have to give our friends who taught me this some props here. Dana and Greg Newkirk are the ones that told me about it when we went with them. And they learned it from somebody that they went Bigfoot hunting with on the show. I think, oh gosh, I can't remember the show right now, but they went, this person taught them this, and they said, and that person said that a Bigfoot or something, oh my gosh. I tell great stories, let me tell you.
No. I'm following along with my mouth hanging open.
Anyway, props to Dana and Greg, but here's the call that they said that the Sasquatch will respond to. Tia hia ha momo yahe. Did I do that right, Dana and Greg? Yes.
I need a clip of that so that I can play it out here.
Well, I have it on my audio on my phone. Send it to me once and I play it sometimes.
Yeah, I'm not gonna howl or anything, Laura, if that's what you thought it was.
I was expecting some primal scream like and not
no.
So articulate.
Momo yahe.
It almost sounds Hawaiian.
Yeah, a little bit. It does, doesn't it?
It does, actually.
Yeah. Indian, I think maybe Indian. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But so it's funny because I'll randomly, we'll be out taking a ride. I remember I would do it randomly. We're at a dark place, and all of a sudden I'll roll the window down and I'll go, Tia here, ha, Momo, yeah. It's like, Mom, stop it.
It probably means something really disgusting in Bigfoot language.
Who knows?
I'm a dumbass.
Well,
come get me.
I'm going to try that this year.
Yeah, if there's anybody who's watching that actually understands that language or whatever, I'm just only saying what I was taught.
Yeah.
We would love to know what that means. And here comes the funny comments.
Yeah. So, Julie, probably gonna start wrapping it up here a little bit, but
before we wrap it up, I want to bring up one more thing that Julie, you didn't bring up yet, and I want to go back to a time when you told us that you had been camping.
Yes, I forgot about that one. So after, my husband was in the military, and then we came back. We got out, and then we were going to raise our kids here so they can go to good schools. So I had met one of the people that he went to school with before we left in the military, and then found out that they were in town. And so it turns out that they always go up to the Boundary Waters. And the Boundary Waters is a area up north in Minnesota where you can go camping and stuff, and there's no motorboats or anything. So it's all canoeing, portaging in, tents and everything. So after we got back, then we started doing that. We had groups of girls of up to 8 girls. We'd have 4 canoes. We would go in for almost a week. And we would pick different spots on different lakes and stuff. And then we would go in and just camp for a week, just us girls. And it was a long time ago, but it was one of the first trips that we went on. The place that we were going to Little Caribou, or Big Caribou Lake, but it was so long to get there. We decided that, it's going to be so long to get out that we wanted to move our camp closer so that we wouldn't have as far to paddle out. on the day that we were going to leave. So we changed campsites. We went to this other campsite that had a big rocky thing out into the lake. And so we were only there for one night. And it was very buggy and everything. So after we ate, we went into our tents, and we had 2 tents, 4 girls in a tent, and we all brought our flashlights and our books to read. And then we were yakking in the tent, reading our books and stuff. And it was getting late. But then all of a sudden, because we're quiet now because we're just all into our books, but you could hear a noise outside the tent, and it was coming up from the lake, but it was a shuffling noise. And then we just kind of, we perked up and we're looking at each other, and we're like, what is that? And somebody said, oh, it's just a moose. But it was shuffling. It wasn't walking like it had cloven feet,
Yeah.
that a moose would on rock. It was shuffling, 2 feet, shuffling. But then the smell hit us. It stunk so bad. And I couldn't even describe the smell. It was just a compilation of different smells. It was just really bad. You had to plug your nose. But it walked up to the side of our tent. We had 4 girls in. I was the third over from the girl that was closest to it. And I just thought, oh, hate to be you. But it stopped there. And it stopped there, and you could smell, and you could tell it like bent over on the side of it bent over there like it was checking us out or something. And then it just kept walking away. It shuffled away, and then a tree fell over. And they're just like, oh, that moose just knocked over a tree. And I'm thinking, oh, how the heck could that moose knock over a tree?
Yeah.
I never bought the moose thing, but left it at that. We went to investigate. I didn't notice anything. At that time, I didn't notice to look for footprints. Well, I was looking for moose footprints, and I didn't see any moose footprints, but I didn't know to look for Bigfoot footprints,
Oh, Julie, you crack me up.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that story. That's great. That's funny.
Ooh, I'm glad I'm not her.
Yeah, right? It's like if I'm being chased by a bear, I just gotta be faster than the last guy.
Quicker than the last person.
Oh my God.
Well, so Julie, in these years of kind of working on the spiritual side, the metaphysical side of yourself, what, we already talked about a wow moment with you, and the word skateboard, it forever will mean something to the 4 of us. But what, what have you learned in this time? What have you surprised yourself with? And what was your own personal wow moment?
The skateboard was a wow moment for me. I think that just with everything that I'm learning and stuff, I'm opening up. I'm accepting everything. I am letting me be me and stuff. And, with meditating, and channeling and stuff, I'm more calmer and everything. And I am just more accepting of stuff that happens. I don't know. I think what's really kind of cool is like, the first time my daughter was pregnant, I was kind of upset that she wouldn't tell me what the baby was. That she knew what it was going to be, but she wouldn't say. They weren't telling anybody. And I just like, well, okay. And then I was at home, and I was just like, wow, that stinks. And then I heard a voice just say, boy. When I was walking in the house, I heard a voice that said, boy. And I was just like, okay, all right. I'll go with that, and I didn't know who told me, but we all had to write down stuff and guess what it was going to be and when it was going to be born and stuff like that, And then my youngest son was in the Air Force Academy, so he didn't know yet that she was pregnant. And then we were out to dinner one night, and he found out she was pregnant, and he was just like, oh, it's going to be a girl. And I said, no, it's a boy. Well, how do you know? And I said, I know. a voice in my head told me.
I just know.
I love that.
And it was a boy. So,
And now you
Yeah.
are expecting another grandchild from her.
Yes. Last summer I had a dream. No, I had a vision. I was meditating and I had a vision of a little girl. And I was like, well, I don't recognize this little girl. So I was just like, well, I wrote it down in my journal that I had this vision of a little girl. And I just thought, well, so I think somebody's going to have a baby. So we'll just wait and see who it is, So I just dated it in that. And then a month later, I had a dream that I was holding another baby, but it wasn't a little girl. But I didn't know it wasn't the same girl. It wasn't the same baby, but I couldn't tell what it was because it was all wrapped up in a blanket and everything. Months later, we get an email, or the kids come over and they're pregnant. My son that lives next door, they're pregnant. They're having a baby. And I thought, oh, cool. It must be the girl. Well, a week later, we found out my daughter's pregnant. No, I said, she's the one that's having the girl. And I was hoping that my son would have a girl too, but they're having a boy. So that was the one I didn't know. So I think this is kind of cool.
It is.
I mean,
cool.
I like
cool.
Yeah.
those are wow moments for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then my son that was in the Air Force, remember the one morning I woke up and I was just like, oh, I feel like somebody's going to have a baby, because I was just like really in a good mood and that. And I mentioned it to you guys. I said, I feel like somebody's having a baby, but we'll just wait and see. And then when they came home and a few months later, it was like, hey, we're having a baby. So when I had that feeling, they were just getting pregnant.
Oh.
So
like you were in the room
so
with
I just
them.
thought that was really cool. No. I was across the pond from them.
Nowhere near.
No, thank you. No. So I like that. Those are my wow moments.
Yeah, when you get a validation, especially early on, when you start wondering, was that voice I heard? Do I need to be committed, or is that what is that?
Yeah.
And you start to get validation over time, And just a reminder for the viewers that one of the reasons we're doing this is because years ago, and not many years ago, if you said I heard a voice telling me blah blah blah, it's like, boom, Zoloft, get him out of here, whatever. But more and more people are allowing themselves to be like Julie is. You open yourself up and you will experience. We all have abilities that have yet to be discovered because we're not open to it. And Julie has shocked us. Not that we didn't think, but because watching her grow, it's a continuous thing. And the channeling, I know, has been an important part to her. Some of the most profound channeling has been coming from Julie. Anyway, and I did want to say earlier,
it's been a great journey.
It has, hasn't it?
Well, ladies, it looks like we're coming to the end of this episode. It's been a lot of fun, and we want to thank our viewers for joining us and listening to us and hopefully resonating with us. We want to leave you with the quote, sometimes it's not about being believed, but it's about company. So join us again next time and have an awesome week.
As we close today's conversation, we invite you to take a moment and notice what resonated with you. Maybe it was a thought, a feeling, or a quiet knowing that surfaced as you listened. Whatever it was, trust that it arrived for a reason. The 108 Effect is about remembering that awareness begins within, that clarity doesn't always come from searching outward, but from learning to listen inward. Thank you for sharing this space with us, for your openness and for your willingness to explore the deeper layers of life alongside us. If this episode spoke to you, feel free to subscribe and follow along so that you can continue these conversations with us. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and trust the compass within. This is the 108 Effect.